Johnson is recognized for 60 minutes as a designee of the minority leader. Under the Speaker's announced policy of January, the gentleman is recognized.
Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members have 5 legislative days to revise and extend their remarks and include extraneous material on the subject of my special order.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This evening, we'll have Republican members from across this country to address the multiple crises that are facing our country. Whether it's the economic crisis, the crime crisis, the energy crisis, the border crisis, the foreign policy crisis, and now the related issue of the staggering and ongoing crisis of fentanyl, a scourge upon this country. Mr. Speaker, I would yield first to the gentleman from Virginia, Mr. Griffith, to address this issue.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In 2020, my state of Virginia hit a tragic milestone. Fatal drug overdoses hit an all-time high of 2,309. Fentanyl and its analogs caused or contributed to 71.8% of those deaths. The statistics we have for 2021 indicate it may surpass that heartbreaking number of overdose deaths. We have tools at our disposal to reduce the availability of illicit substances such as fentanyl and meth, and in turn prevent overdose deaths, but they are not being used. Cartels are taking components of fentanyl from China, manufacturing it in Mexico, and smuggling it across the border. In fiscal year 2021, fentanyl seizures by U.S. Customs, Border and Protection increased by 134%, but the Biden administration is weakening our country's ability to secure its own border, allowing not only more illegal immigration, but smuggling of deadly drugs. Meanwhile, fentanyl-related substances have only temporarily been listed on a Schedule I drug with extensions passed every few months, including today. We extended it another 3 weeks, but not a permanent scheduling. To correct this problem, I've introduced the Halt Fentanyl Act with Congressman Bob Latta of Ohio. It would permanently schedule fentanyl-related substances, but our bill doesn't stop there. It streamlines research on fentanyl analogs so we can better understand the effects of these substances. At a recent hearing of the Subcommittee on Health, we heard testimony there are as many as 4,800 fentanyl analogs. We have data on fewer than 30 of them. In other words, fewer than 1% of them. Most of the fentanyl-related substances we have data on are dangerous, but some are inert and may even have properties that block opioid addiction. We simply need to know more. So our bill makes room for researchers, not just at federal agencies, but across research institutions to get to work. I believe our bill would save lives. House Democrats should help us send it to the President's desk. But this bill alone will not solve the problem. It helps, but it will not solve the problem. We have to use all the tools available to us. We need to increase the number of border agents that we have, particularly on the southern border. We need to give them the tools they need. We need to give them more drones for electronic surveillance in the air. We need to give them more dogs to help them figure out what's going on, to sniff out the drugs when they can. It's coming across in small amounts. Here you see it. 2 milligrams lethal dose for most Americans, and there it is compared to the penny. They need more dogs at the border. They need more horses because some of that terrain is not suitable for motor vehicles. And last but not least, Mr. Speaker, we need to finish building the wall. I yield back.
Could not have said it better myself, my friend, and I thank you for those comments. Mr. Speaker, what Mr. Griffith is explaining there is the magnitude of this crisis, and I have a number of colleagues here tonight that will speak to it. Illegal drug overdoses recently became the leading cause of death for Americans aged 18 to 45. The leading cause of death. Today in America, illegal drug overdoses are killing more people at this age demographic than car accidents, obviously than cancer, more than COVID. And in my home state of Louisiana alone, opioid deaths increased in 2021 by 40%. 40% in 1 year. Mostly driven by an increase in illicit fentanyl. What's fentanyl? Fentanyl is this synthetic opioid that's 80 to 100 times stronger than morphine. It's created with chemicals shipped from China to Mexico. It's trafficked across our southern border. Its potency means the smallest amount, even to fit on the tip of a pencil, is considered a lethal dose. And now it's fueling one of the worst drug epidemics in American history. Mr. Speaker, the Biden administration's response has been nothing. Passivity. They've been passive about securing our border, the entry point for all these drugs coming into our communities. They've been passive about prosecuting drug offenders. Many Democrat-led jurisdictions are lowering felony offenses to misdemeanors. They've been passive about preventing drug abuse. The Democrats' American Rescue Plan, so-called, even includes a provision, as you've already heard tonight, and you'll hear more, to distribute drug paraphernalia at taxpayers' expense. It's unbelievable. Mr. Speaker, fentanyl deaths are certain to increase unless we act with the same resolve that we have used to attack other less deadly threats. And if the Biden administration was serious about addressing this crisis, they'd start by securing our turnstile at the southern border. It's time for the Democrats in charge here to wake up. To help address this problem, we have to take immediate steps. We have to secure our border. We have to prosecute criminals again. We have to work with localities to prevent drug abuse rather than accommodate it. Mr.